Right, well, it's Halloween, so I'm going to talk about 6 of the scariest games I've ever played in my whole life. Some of them I'm convinced are actually haunted. Probably. Ghosts, ghouls, aliens and phantasms. I said phantasms. I've not done a top anything list in a good while. Kind of miss it. So I've compiled a small list of games that, for one reason or another, literally made me crap my pants.
Here, calm down.
Even if unintentionally. I've picked out games that go all the way back to the Sinclair ZX Spectrum. Incidentally, my first computer, and probably the most haunted of all the 8-bit micros, apart from perhaps the Dragon 32, which I think was imbued with the blood of actual Celts. Yeah, that's a fact. Right, well that's the intro done. Let's go. So here's my top 6 list of 6 haunted games, starting at number 6. Kicking things off is Fright Night on the Amiga.
Welcome to Fright Night.
Based on the horror comedy movie of the same name.
This could be the night of your life.
Directed by Tom Holland in 1985 when he was minus 11 years old apparently. The movie Fright Night is a horror comedy classic now, but to kids in the 80s it made us actually believe that there might actually be a vampire living next door, actually. The gameplay itself is relatively simple and a rather interesting one for the time. You take control of our anti-hero Jerry Dandridge, a vampire who must feast on the living to quench his thirst for blood. Skulking around your creepy mansion, the aim is to track down your trespassing neighbours who are trying to destroy Jerry, the vampire next door, and ultimately survive the night. So far so campy then. Where the game really shines though is in its music and sound effects, and this is precisely how Fright Night made such an impact on me. Even to this day I can hear the opening music and instantly be transported back to 1989, when once again my imagination becomes a petri dish of fear and trepidation. It's worth playing now, if only for the 80s horror movie vibe that emanates from every glowing pixel, as well as every chime of music and blood-curdling sound effects. Curdling? I meant gurgling. Gurgling. Right, number 6 then, Doom. I know what you're thinking, Doom isn't scary. I agree, it's not, now. But imagine you've never played it. Imagine you've only ever seen it in screenshots. Imagine, if you will, that you've never even played a proper first-person shooter before. Well, that's the situation I found myself in around 1994. Receiving Doom on a fistful of floppy disks that had been passed around the school playground. I got home that night and carefully unzipped the contents one by one onto my computer, not knowing quite what lay in store for me. All I did know was that Doom was 1. The best game ever made, 2. It was 3D, aka real life, and 3. It was up to you alone to fight off the demons from hell. Now, I don't recall being especially traumatised by the first level. As we're all familiar, it can just be a simple case of running, or in my case back then, carefully creeping and shooting from the start to the end without death. But stage 2 is where things take a turn. Jump scares, disorientation, and the constant sense of, well, doom, did more than enough to make me back away from the keyboard and stop playing. Yeah, I'm a puss. However, the classic Doom gameplay had done more than enough to hook me in for another go, and then another, and another. And before long, I was as desensitised to Doom as I was to Ed 209 pulverising a corporate shill. If you're anything like me, Doom's a game that you've gone back to time and time again, and you'll likely continue to do so for many years to come. So another entry at 6 now, it's Night Law on the ZX Spectrum. Yeah, Night Law, Spectrum classic, ported to many systems of the era, but notably not the C64. I think one was in production, but never released. Now, Night Law isn't inherently haunted or anything, and I don't think it's supposed to be scary, but I'm putting it here because it's my list, and as a kid I was terrified of it. If you're not familiar with the game, you play as the character Sabreman, cursed to turn into a werewolf at night and it's your job to find and retrieve a number of items and return them to the wizard's cauldron in order to find a cure for your werewolfness. A groundbreaking game at the time, both in graphics and gameplay. As a 7-year-old, it was the fear of instant death, the strange isometric presentation, and those primitive bleeps and bloops of the Spectrum that combined to viscerally overload my mind and instill a deep sense of fear and foreboding. So, Horror Zombies from the Crypt on the Amiga. Yeah, I put this at 6. Another Amiga classic, although one that also saw a PC port, apparently. Never played it. Horror Zombies from the Crypt is clearly inspired by 50s horror staples and features a whole host of spooky creatures, including not only zombies, but werewolves, mummies, and Venus flytraps. Yeah, big ones, like that Seymour guy from that movie, the shop one, Open All Hours. No, not Open All Hours. Now, the gameplay itself isn't especially fear-inducing. It's a relatively competent puzzle platformer type thing. But once again, it's the music and the sound effects that really make it. Yeah, they set the tone. You can choose one or the other, music or sound effects, not both at the same time. Cursed primitive technology. It's the digital version of Dance of the Nights from Prokofiev? Don't know. Some composer anyway. He did a ballet of Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, and it's music from that. I know it doesn't sound scary, but to me, it'll always be one of the most chilling pieces of music ever written because of this game. If you choose to play with the music, it does become repetitive, repeating the same 16 or so bars over and over and over. But I think all that did was just embed it deep into my brain. And if you choose sound effects, yeah, they're pretty creepy in and of themselves. In conjunction with the frankly terrifying 80s images in the cutscenes, Horror Zombies from the Crypt is a truly haunting digital relic that offers up a fun but challenging adventure, even if the repetitive music, whilst hauntingly terrifying, will drive you absolutely nuts. Yeah, we're into the 90s now. I've got Phantasmagoria here at 6. The PC was no stranger to haunted FMV titles with the likes of 7th Guest and 11th Hour. Yeah, they're two of the most popular ones. But Phantasmagoria ups the stakes by making the puzzles more accessible, but the action far more gory. And by action, I mean the video. The story itself is entertaining enough.
How about some coffee?
Yeah, big one.
Covering some adult themes, including sex.
No. Ooh la la.
Smoking.
Did you see that bathroom yet on the 2nd floor?
Pouring a glass of water. Looking at some fire. Snowmen. Or snow people. A wind-up MIDI piano. Giant bottles of Corona for some reason. Stretching out on a chaise longue. Condescending husbands.
What? The bed grabbed me!
The bed grabbed you?
Yes!
Oh.
And a cat called Spaz.
Hey Spaz. How you doing, kitty?
Yeah, it really was a game of its time. Released to the PC and Sega Saturn at the height of FMV power in 1995, it was a critical and commercial success, meaning that it quickly found its way into my first generation Pentium. It takes a little while for the gameplay to warm up, but Phantasmagoria's frightening atmosphere, portrayed throughout gameplay and cutscenes, dares you to continue on. And playing this late at night, in the dark, probably doesn't carry quite the weight it once did, but back then, it wasn't a task to be taken lightly. It's available today on the Steam store, and it's a must play for anyone that's into the curious subgenre of FMV games. And lastly, at 666, we've got on the ZX Spectrum again, Aliens. Yeah, based on the movie Aliens. I know it's not like super scary or anything, but hear me out. The game became part of my collection as a child, somewhat mysteriously. I didn't buy it. I don't remember it even being given to me. It just sort of appeared. So yeah, mystery. Ooh. Now the ZX Spectrum is a much beloved machine in the UK, and set against the backdrop of milk snatching and miners' strikes, its curious bleeps and bloops kind of helped to distract everyone just long enough to make it through to the 1990s. Aliens on the Spectrum, whilst quaint by today's standards, challenges you to try and survive an alien infestation on the Sulaco by taking charge of 6 Marines. Deploying orders from the relative safety of your command terminal, you seek to avoid or destroy the alien infiltrators, or otherwise just hide in relative safety. The distinct lack of any credible music and primitive sound effects in Aliens only served to put your imagination into overdrive in order to fill those gaps, and for my puny 8-year-old brain, this was enough to induce crippling anxiety. And to make things worse, as a child, I used to play it in the dark, with just the glow of my 14-inch CRT to illuminate the surroundings. Well, that was more than enough to cement its place in my memory as a terrifically terrifying experience in digital fear. Yeah, so that's 6 games that, for one reason or another, literally made me shit my pants. I'm playing through them all again this week. I'm not sure I feel the same thrill as I once did. Perhaps my imagination has been dulled by a raft of 4K 60 frames per second zombie franchises, surreal indie titles, and bizarre digital experiments. Or more than likely, they just weren't all that scary to begin with. Yeah, that's probably it. Oh well, I guess there's just nothing to be scared of.